Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at this right here, Carthage. This is a game that's put out by What's Games and SAS Creative, and it says here on the side of the box, it's easy to learn, ... easy to die. It is a deck building arena combat game, gladiatorial combat game, set way back when. And it's interesting, but let's get down to the table. I'll show you how it works, and then we'll come back with some final thoughts in just a few moments, and you can make your final decision based on that. Let's get to it. Now, the point of the game is to be the last person standing. And of course, as I said earlier, the armor here is your hit points. If you are knocked down to 0, you are out of the game. There is player elimination here, so you do have to take that under advisement. This is a deck building game in which you're going to be purchasing cards from up here during the purchase phase, and you're going to be adding them to your discard pile. The difference being is that while you're playing in the action phase of the game, you do not play all of the cards out of your hand at the same time. You only choose one of them to play, and then the next person chooses one, and so forth and so on, until everybody has used all 5 of their cards. And then we go into the purchase phase where you can purchase cards to add to your deck later on. A refresh phase happens, and then we go to the next round. These tokens that are out here on the board, the X's denote impassable areas or columns or whatever you'd like to have them be. These spots with a little blood with a number plus in it is going to give you +1 attack. If you are on this tile and you're attacking somebody that is adjacent to it, you'll get +1 combat, or you're going to basically do an additional damage to them that round. These are favor tokens, which is going to be the currency of the game that you're going to be using to purchase the new action cards from your hand, or you're going to be using them to ready new cards that you have used. Up here is a +1 movement, so if you start your turn on that and you play a card that has a movement icon on it, then you'll be able to get +1 movement, whatever the number might be. When you move off of one of these tokens, you simply flip it over to its other side, and then at the beginning of the next round, it will refresh and be able to be used again. But these tokens can only be used once per round. So once everybody has chosen a starting space for their person that has to be on the outside of the arena, a theater card is flipped over. Now, the theater cards are going to have some type of I guess you could say government for that round. So for example, here at the end of actions, in other words, after everyone has finished playing action cards, the players who gain the most favor also gain +3 movement. So they'll get an additional movement to maybe set up for the beginning of next round or something to that effect. But this is a round-specific governing rule that will happen this round, and then at the beginning of the next round, another one will be flipped over, and it'll have some other kind of difference on there. So, to start off with, the Thracian over here is going to be a little timid, and take it easy and just move 1 toward the center of the arena. After everyone has played 1 card, it comes back around to the first player, and the Thracian here is going to look at the cards that he has available to him. We're going to discard this card without using its effect, and we're going to use Sigil of the City here, which gives me +4 favor, like so, and then this has to be turned over and placed back underneath like so. And if I want to use this again, I'm going to have to spend 1 favor and lose 2 armor in order to do it again later on in the future. Rotarius over here, the blue player, is going to play his sidestep, which gives him either +1 favor or +1 movement. And since he is on a tile that gives him +1 movement, that's going to give him 2 movement. So he's going to go 1, 2, which will get him 3 favor. 1, 2, 3. And now this one is flipped over, having been used. It will be flipped over at the start of the next round. Then the red player over here, the Democari, is going to be using his dodge card, which is a +2 movement, and he also gets +1 favor. So he'll use his +2 movement to go 1, 2 on here, which puts him on a tile that's going to give him +2 favor, and he's also going to have to lose an armor in order to do that. So he loses an armor here, but he also does get 1, 2, 3 favor. The Mormillo is going to use this quick jab for 1 movement point and move right here, just like that. Now this one is flipped over and will be flipped over back over at the beginning of the next round. The Thracian just spent 2 movement to move across the board there. He didn't have a very good hand, basically. But now the Retiarius here is going to use his lunge card as a discard so that he can play his thin harness special card here. Now, what this does is it gives him +1 movement, so it gives him a movement, and then it also gives him an attack, and if that attack is successful, he'll also get +2 movement after that. So he's going to use his 1 movement to move here onto, this flips over, onto this +2 combat, and that is going to be added to this, which is 3, which makes the Democari's health go down by 3, 1, 2, 3. And then because he has, that was a successful attack, he gets to move 2 as well. So he's going to go 1 and 2 like that and move back and get ready for a defensive position. But now, since he used this card, it's going to be flipped over and he's going to have to spend 5 favor to ready it again. So that's a pretty nasty card, but it is pretty expensive as well. So now it comes to the Democari's turn, and he is inspired somewhat by the forwardness of Retiarius. So he's going to use, let's see, he'll use his wave card as a discard so that he can use his light Baltus card, and this is going to give him the ability to move 1, just like that, and then he'll be able to cause 1 damage to the Mormillo over here, and then if that is successful, which is he gets +2 favor like that. And then this card, of course, is turned over, and he's going to have to choose 6 favor to ready that one again. And finally, it comes to Mormillo's turn, and so he is basically just going to use this slash, which is going to do 1 damage back to the Democari, like so. And it's also going to get him 3 favor. 1, 2, and 3. We do have to fire off this theater card. So at the end of actions, which is where we are before we go to the purchase phase, the person who gained the most favor also gains a 3 movement. So the Democari got 8. Looks like the Retiarius got 7, and so 8 is the most, so a red player can move 3 if he would like. He's going to move 3 like so right here. Starting with the person to the right of the first player. So since first player is the Thracian here, Mormillo is going to be able to go first in purchasing things. Now, the reason that is because there is a place for you to purchase the starting player token, which is right here, the initiate. Or you can use 2 to lobby, which means that you can take a theater card from the discard pile and put it on top of the theater deck, which means it's going to be fired off next round. Another thing that you can do here is focus, which is basically a way for you to cull some of your weaker cards out of your deck so that the stronger cards can come up a little bit more. You would simply take a card from your discard pile and put it here in the focus pile. Another thing that you can do is evaluate, which means that you can focus, which means you get this. You can get rid of one of your cards to the discard pile. Then you can wash all of these cards here and have them replaced, and then if you have the ability to, you can also make a purchase. The anatomy of these cards here is just like the action cards that you start with the caveat being that they have a cost up in the upper corner of their card. So, for example, you have to pay 5 favor to put this into your deck, 4 favor to put that into your deck, and so forth and so on. Over here, Retiarius has 7, so, that looks very tempting. You can only purchase 1 card, though, so I think he's going to use 5 to purchase this card and put it into his deck, and he'll have 2 left. Now it comes over to the Democari, and he has 8 to spend. Of course, this needs to be replaced. Yeah, the fleeting feet. He's hurting. He's low on armor, so he's going to put that into his deck and use 7 of it. And now it comes back around to Mormillo, and they still have 4 left, so we're going to go ahead and put that here. we're like in the fight or flight. So that's $3. So we've got one left. The Thracian is out of money, and that pulls everybody out. And now all of these will flip back over like so that they can begin the next round. And everybody is going to draw their next 5 cards and do another round. And this will be flipped over at the beginning. So this one says all players may not enter or leave the red area this round. So that means that the Democari here and the Murmillo are not going to be able to get into that red area for any of those bonuses. Additionally, these two aren't going to be able to leave if they get into a hotspot. So, but that's generally how you play Carthage. You continue playing until there's only one person left standing. And that's that. Now, as we usually try to point out, that was just a very basic generalization of how you play the game. There's other modes. There's a solo mode. There is a app-driven chariot mode. There's also a co-op mode that you can play with the game as well. So there is more in the box, so to speak, than what I showed you, but I just wanted to give you a general overview of how the game works, so that you could basically just see that and understand it. Now, with all that having been said, let's go ahead and get into some of the pros and cons of the game. So first of all, I do like the deck building aspect of the game where you can personalize, so to speak, or your warrior, make him more effective in one certain area. Maybe he's more effective at moving around, or he's more effective at having more armor and being able to heal, and he's resilient that way. Or maybe he's just a tank that does a lot of damage and he does that often. There's a number of different ways that you can kind of diversify your warrior, and I like that about the game. Now, there is also a variable player power thing that's going on here, which I also enjoy, which I guess could be a second pro, in that the equipment cards that you start the game with give you abilities that other people aren't able to do. And I like that as well, because again, it makes you feel different than the other players in the game. So it's not just these, vanilla, so to speak, warriors that are going at each other in an arena. No, you are the Democari, or you are the Murmillo, or whatever character you choose. That is cool, and I like it when games do that. I also like the strategic and tactical possibilities that the game offers, because you can't just run on in and start causing a whole bunch of damage, because you'll get teamed up on and you will get hurt, and you'll probably be one of the first ones to go out. You have to be strategic as how you move around, when you choose to strike, trying to choose the best advantageous position in order to strike from. So there's all those kinds of strategic and tactical possibilities that you have to come up with. Now, with the caveat being, of course, that it is somewhat of a card-driven type thing, because you're working from a deck. You can't just make those decisions arbitrarily. You have to wait for those cards to come up, and if they come up in the right sequence and all of that other kind of stuff. So there is a little bit of a luck of the draw there, but I think the strategic tactical possibilities that the game offers is pretty strong. Another pro of the game are the theater cards. I like it when games have, I guess you could call them event cards, where you flip over a card and that card's rule governs that round. And then on the next round, you're going to flip over another card with a different rule. I like how that works, because it makes each round feel fresh and different. Another pro of the game is the fact that the miniatures are pretty cool. They are nicely sculpted miniatures. The only thing that I really have a problem with the miniatures is the base is a little thin for my taste. I wish that the bases were a little bit thicker, a little bit more durable, I guess you could say. But overall, I think they're great miniatures, and they do add a level of pop to the game that really would be lacking if they were just cardboard standees or cardboard tokens. Ugh, that would be really bad. But you get the idea. I think they're good miniatures. I just wish that the bases were a little bit thicker, but that's about it. Now, the first con that I'm going to mention here is the playing of your hand. I'm used to having deck building games where you're able to play your entire hand and do everything you want, and now it's the next person's turn, and boom, 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 it happens pretty fast, and now it's back to my turn. This one, you have to play one card at a time, and then they play one card at a time, then they play one card at a time, and it just feels like the game kind of grinds to a halt. And then it picks up and you purchase all your things, and then it comes back to the action phase and it grinds back down to a halt a little bit, and then it picks up, and there's just this stop and go flow of the game that is just really jarring to me, and I don't like it at all. I understand why they did it. I think it's necessary for the simultaneous action idea that is necessary with an arena combat game, where if I was able to do everything that I could do in my hand, it would just put the next person at a real disadvantage. They need to be able to do some actions in between my actions. So I get that. I just don't like it. Another con of the game for me, and it might be just a con for me specifically, and very heavily in my opinion, and that is I didn't like the drab colors that were used. They were just very, I don't know, just had a very stone look to it. And I understand that arenas were very, dingy, and they were not very colorful, and they were not this or that. But I get that. It was a stylistic choice that I just didn't like. That's all. It doesn't look very good while it's set up on the board. There's a lot of... depending on what setup you use for the arena, there can be a lot of congestion with different tokens on the board. And that just kind of makes everything blend in together more, which makes things hard to pick out, and so forth and so on. So when you're walking by and you look at the board, you're like, there's not much to draw you in aesthetically there. But I just didn't like the palettes, I guess, that were used. They were very drab. And finally, my last con for the game is really the biggest one that is evident within the game, and that is the fact that it has player elimination in the basic mode. I know you can do co-op, so that I understand that. I get it. But if you play this game with the player elimination, and you have some players in the game that like to kind of nerf the rules and kind of fudge over here and fudge a little bit more over there, as far as just being cheeky with what they're trying to do, running around instead of actually fighting, running around healing, and you have another person that just can't match that movement. That really drags the game out. Really, really, really drags the game out. And it makes it very unenjoyable for everybody except the people who are still in the game. And you don't want to just walk away from a game after you've been eliminated from it, because you have some investment there. But you really kind of have to do that, because there is no telling how long that game is going to last after you get knocked out of it. So I wasn't too big of a fan of the player elimination mode of the game, so you might want to steer clear of that one. But, I mean, it's the basis of the game, so I don't know how that's going to work. So all in all, I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10, because I did like the idea. I just wasn't too savvy on some of the implementations of that idea in one way or another. I think it's a fun game. It's an above average game. I think that there's a lot of possibilities here. I think a lot of people will enjoy the game. I just wasn't too hot on it, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Not quite middle of the road, not quite average, just slightly above that, but 6 out of 10 for me for Carthage. Go check it out, try before you buy if at all possible, and thanks for joining me here. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care.